Wabangal, Gu, Natabayan, Naya, Bromwell Chambers, Darkanung, Dilly, Awabikal, Garbal, Nara, Naya, Narragayan, Dilly, Nira. Good evening to you, men, women and children. This is Darkanung country. I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to my elders from the hills, swamps, rivers, lakes to the oceans. And I'd like to pay my respects to all elders, past and present, who are the holders of knowledge, custom and law and tradition. Darkanung land is and will always be Aboriginal land. I would also like to pay my respects to all other elders, past and present, and acknowledge all other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here tonight, and acknowledge all others that are gathered here for this special event. Yada, Gayaigu, Darkanung Nira, welcome to Darkanung country.
Thank you. How was that? Bronwyn, Jack Chambers. Thank you, Jack. That was great. Thank you, Bronwyn. Welcome to the Litmus test. I'm Phil Moore. We have a jam-packed show lined up for you today. It's all about music. We're going to talk about piracy issues. We're going to talk about venues, lack of original music venues here on the Central Coast. And we're going to talk about heaps of other stuff. But first, before we get into any of that, we have special guests Manana are going to perform for us live. And they're busy setting up right now. And they'll be ready any second now. So, you ready to go, guys? Once you're plugged in. Thank you. Welcome, Manana.
Thank you. When you got a cold heart, it'll get warm in a while. So if I'll ever again gonna try that smile, it'll be a while. Oh, I can tell you got a cold heart, it'll get torn up in a while. So if I'll ever again gonna try that smile, it'll be a while.
At the end of the show to do another song for us to wrap things up. Now it's actually time for the news, the arts news. Now, normally I would have my wingman Peter Healy with me here today, but he's off sick. So if you're watching Peter, get well soon. Hopefully be with us again next month. So I'm doing the news on my own this week. And there's three big stories, actually, well, I just wanted to mention. If you remember last month, we talked about Senator Brandis and his Excellence in the Arts national program. There's been a lot of stink in the last month about this. There was a delegation that went to try and meet him of arts organisations to try and present their case for the smaller to medium large sized arts organisations. He refused to meet with them. That's what they say. Now, I could understand if he was too busy. However, he did happen to meet with the representatives of major performing arts companies, those who won't be affected by the cuts to the Australia Council. So Senator Brandis is putting his foot down, basically. He's not talking about this. He's not even negotiating about this. He's determined to make it go through. So in light of that stance, Labor, the Greens and various independents in the Senate have combined forces to pass a move for a Senate inquiry into the National Program for Excellence into the Arts. So they're trying to get an inquiry into this to see if it actually is legal and justified, because at the very least they want to have some artists represented in determining how this works. If you remember, they're taking $104 million away from the Arts Council over the next 3 years. But they've protected the funding that's going to the major arts groups. So most of that money which is taking away for his special Excellence of the Arts program is going to go from small to medium arts groups, and they're the ones that will suffer as a result of this. So the committee is going to examine the establishment of this program, which is under a federal budget allocation and will take $27 million away from Australian Council each year. The motion by Senator Jacinta Collins, Green Senator Scott Ludlam, was passed, but the Senator Brandts declined to comment on further inquiry, so he's just saying it's not worth it, it's too soon, he's not interested. So hopefully there'll be some redress to this, because a lot of arts groups are up in arms about this in particular. Meanwhile, still in the Senate, they have just passed a new law, new piracy laws, which means it may soon be harder for Australians to illegally download their favourite shows, TV shows, movies and music. This legislation allows rights holders, meaning the film companies and the record companies, to seek a court injunction to force the internet service providers, the ISPs of the country, to block access to overseas websites that facilitate piracy past. Now what this means basically is that a movie studio or record company can go to court and have a certain website blacklisted so that they are blocked from Australian users. It only applies to overseas websites, in particular places like Pirate Bay and various torrent sites. It won't apply to sites that are in here. It also specifically doesn't prohibit VPN, which is one way to get around this legislation, which makes the whole thing rather pointless, frankly. I'm certainly in favour of the movie studios and the music companies wanting a legislation like this to protect their rights and the rights of musicians and filmmakers. You know, there needs to be something done about illegal downloads of intellectual property. I don't know if this is a solution though. We've tried this before. Usually it catches out people that in the net that should not be part of this. It's entirely possible under this legislation that if you're a Dropbox user, for example, things that you've got on Dropbox could get caught up in this, that you might legally own. It's too vague a legislation, and this kind of technical protection just doesn't tend to work. However, I hope I'm wrong. We'll see what happens. In lighter news, have you heard about Apple Music? Apple is about to release a new program of music streaming, music downloads, and they've offered it to get people using the service. They've offered it free for the next 3 months, which is great. You can download all this music, listen to all this music from major artists for the next 3 months before you officially buy your license for it. Now, Apple's been pretty good in the past. They invented iTunes, of course, which was a saviour to the music industry. At least that's one way that people can easily and legally buy songs for $1 each. However, Taylor Swift, for some reason, has become the champion of the music industry, because she got up and noticed, oh, actually, they're not paying anybody for these free 3 months. No artist, record company, distributor, they're not paying anyone. And the guy at Apple who saw that, oh, actually, that's right, let's fix that. We're going to pay people from now on. You would have thought they'd have thought of that in the first place. So that's not a problem now. They are going to pay artists even over this 3-month period. You may recall Taylor Swift a couple of months ago had the same issue with Spotify, which is a streaming internet service, where she pulled all of her albums off Spotify because, frankly, they didn't pay enough royalties to artists. They paid chicken feed, and she thought it's not worth it. So she's become a champion for some reason of, good on her. At least someone's speaking up, because as soon as she said this, everyone else, oh yeah, that's right. Let's support what Taylor's doing. That's basically our news for this week. Thank you. We have a special package. We've got a panel of guests lined up. Today, it's all about music. We're going to talk about music venues, music piracy, of course. But to get a taste for this, we've got a package to roll, which will give us an introduction to what we're talking about.
Hi, I'm Teen A. Wake for the Litmus test. We've been out on the road interviewing people in the music industry about venues and piracy. We were going to talk about piracy.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
The way copyright and hence the piracy issues came about, I think that age is over. I just think it's a whole new age. So whilst I've made money out of copyright and writing songs, I don't know what the future is.
I say this, if you like an artist, show respect to that artist by buying their material so that they can bring more to you. Because guess what? If they don't get enough back, they're going to have a day job and the artist you like is going to disappear.
It's forced people to think in different ways about how they can create different revenue streams. You know, there's been a lot of revenue lost, but sometimes that can be a good thing because it opens up possibilities and forces people to think differently. I think it's taken a lot of the power away from the bigger record companies and the major labels and given some power to the independent labels and independent bands to, you know, come up with different ways of doing things.
If you find art, however you find it, and you like it, the money will go to that art somehow. You'll go and see a gig. You'll buy a T-shirt. You'll buy the DVD, whatever. I just think it's a different world, and we need to look at it differently. Personally, that's what I think.
You know, whether the bands are producing videos or sound bites or, you know, posting on social media, it's a different sort of interaction, you know.
So what would you say to a new musician now who's trying to make money, you know, in the music industry?
If you are a young musician or a filmmaker or a writer or an actor or a painter, whatever, if your benchmark is absolute quality, it will grow. It will be sustained. It will have a long journey. People will come back to it because they can depend on it.
The world has changed in those 40 years, and one must adapt to changing situations outside of you. And my adaptation is I've taken responsibility for my business on a level that I had never previously done before. I'm managing myself fully. I'm managing this project all the way to Abbey Road and beyond. Take responsibility for your business and do your business well, but most of all, be honest with yourself about your abilities, right? Raise the bar.
You only need one song which will change your life. You don't need 100 okay songs. So maybe you do have to actually work with a real producer, actually think about the way you look, your image, your logo, your whole web presence. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made if you actually want what you say you want, which is success.
Just wanted to ask you your opinion of venues on the coast for playing original music.
Yeah. Well, it's a very spread out scene, I think, on the coast. There's a few people doing some great things that are, you know, people like the Rhythm Hut. They've been going for quite a few years now and they've developed quite a nice community themselves. It's sad to see Lizottes go by the wayside recently. There's been a couple that have gone by the wayside, but you know, it could always be better.
I've never seen venues emptier than they are now. And I'm full of ideas as to how that can improve and make more money for those venues, right? And rather than agents propagating a model that is dead, let's wake up to bring new inspiration to the people of our region.
I just think it's a paradigm shift. Look, quite literally, people don't go out like they used to when I was a young guy getting around. But we didn't have mobile phones then either. We didn't have computers. We had 2 channels on TV, and there was no other option but let's get some live music. So, I mean, we need to take that on board, I think, you know. I just think, you know, great art finds an audience.
What can we create together? No one loses anything. They only gain.
Things like the Rhythm Hut are just amazing. They're quite rare, and it's a real treasure trove. I just think you've got to find little pockets like that and build them up and build a fan base. And once you've got a fan base, they'll follow you if you're good.
We need a lot more support for local original music outlets here on the Central Coast. Please, it's 2015. Let's wake up. Let's start something here on the Central Coast, right? There's plenty of people with plenty of talent. There's no outlet. They're just going to go, right? Central Coast needs to support its local industry and the local people who write songs. That's our local culture.
So today we're talking music, and I have joined with me on the panel today Louise, who's the General Manager for the Rhythm Hut here, where we do the Litmus test. Louis Fairbrother, who's a founding member of Manana, who performed for us earlier. Brent Murphy, studio owner, audio engineer, musician, all-round dog's body. And James Callahan, owner and musical director of JC Entertainment. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we kick into things, as always, we ask people to bring a little random item with them. So, Lou, what have you brought to show us?
I have bought, I'll make sure it's up the right way. This is a painting from my grandfather. I'm actually like a graphic designer background, so he was a big influence in my life. When I was growing up, I always knew I wanted to be an artist. And I had a really great influence and mentor when I was at uni, one of my uni lecturers, and he always sort of explained to everyone, just because you study graphic design or you study one type of art, it doesn't mean that you have to be categorized into that box. So if you're an artist in many ways. It doesn't, there's lots of multi-art artists out there, multi-platform artists, whether they're artists and musicians or, so that's what I brought along.
And you've ended up being the manager of this place,
I
working
have.
with lots of artists.
I do, yeah. I do lots of graphic design for bands and for the Rhythm Hut, and I do a little bit of publicity and band management work as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Thanks. Louis, what have you got to show us?
I've got a melody horn or a melodica. And it's and it's special to me for two reasons. The first reason is I actually bought it on the first ever tour I've been on. I haven't been on many, I've only been on 3, but it was during the first tour I went on and I thought I'd treat myself. And the second reason is because I think, like, I'm a drummer, so it's kind of a strange instrument to have for a drummer, but I've sort of, around that time, I came to realise no matter what instrument you're on, I think it's really important to understand like a bit of basic keyboard and stuff like that. And so it was sort of the beginning of me starting to get interested in notes, really, because prior to that I was just playing beats.
Give us a little something now. What does it sound like?
I'm not...
You've got the notes written on it for you.
I've got the notes written on it, yeah. Okay.
You've got to use it in a song. Brent, what have you got to show us?
I've got a little guitar pick.
Can we get a close-up on that? What's special about that?
Well, when I first started playing guitar, no one showed me how to hold a guitar pick. And I got into the habit of playing it kind of the wrong way. You're supposed to play it with that end, and I played it with that corner. And then I started doing pick and finger style and having nowhere to put the pick, and I put the pick in my mouth. And over time, the picks would wear down. And then one day I realised that the more I chewed them, the thinner they got, and it got a different sound. So now I have an array of guitar picks in my pocket, from new to really chewed, and it depends on the song and the sound as to what pick I use. And I suppose my point is that in the age of all this technology, actually just the simple things can make the most difference. Because the difference between a thin pick and a thick pick is a huge tonal difference. And it always reminds me that I don't need to get all this technology to change my tone. I just try a different pick. And it also reminds me that find your own way. I mean, I hold it really weird. I hold it, and it wasn't until someone said, "Dude, why do you hold your pick like that?" It's like, oh, I don't know.
So you still hold it?
I still hold it. Well, I can't change now, and I sometimes I look for my pick. I wonder where it is, and it's in my mouth.
Well, some of the best musicians are those who kind of taught themselves, did it the wrong way, but it works for them.
Yeah, it works for me. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
James, what have you got to show?
Trusty drum key. I'm a drummer myself, and
two drummers. Oh my god!
Yeah, we're in trouble tonight. And yeah, I just from a very young age, I've had a lot of great mentors in my life, and one thing they've taught me from the very start is be prepared. And as a drummer, if you do not have one of these handy, you're in a lot of trouble, regardless of whether it's your kid or someone else's kid. So.
Very true.
It's just,
Very true.
Well, I've also been a drummer in my time, so I can't say too much. Before we get into our main topic of discussion, I just want to touch on the news story that we had about the recent law that's been passed to try and combat piracy. Do you think this is going to work, Lou?
Well, look, the internet's like a pretty a hard thing to monitor, really, isn't it? But I mean, I think these laws are a great thing to come in. You know, if you like an artist, you should be supporting them and paying for their music rather than downloading it, especially if it's I mean, all artists, but, you know, especially a local Aussie up-and-coming artist. There's no reason why, if you like them, you should be downloading their music, you know. So
for those who are, I actually don't like calling it piracy, because for me piracy is trying to sell other people's intellectual property. In this case, it's really just theft of, you know, the intellectual property rather than pirating it. Nevertheless, do you think this is going to work in stopping people downloading so much? Louis?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of that. I wasn't aware that that legislation had been passed, but I know that the people that put these type of websites out are very resilient, and
they just move along.
They just move along.
They shut the Pirate Bay down. It's already popped up in a dozen other places.
There's hundreds of those type of sites too. I mean, like, that's a popular one for sure, but there's many, and I mean, there's all this stuff now as well with, you know, you can scramble your IP address and stuff like that. So I'm sure I think that they definitely will find a way around it.
Yeah, and that's what VPN technology is about, just so they can't track your IP and all of that.
Yeah.
You agree, guys?
Yeah, I do. I see it as old companies trying to maintain their outdated business model through lobbying and power with the government to change the laws, when really they should be, to my mind, coming up with a better way for people to consume. It's hard to steal stuff now. It's easier just to get onto Spotify. I mean, why steal now? If you go back 10 years ago, downloading illegal music was easy, but it was actually hard to access music on the net and pay. If you try to do the right thing, and I downloaded a lot of illegal music. I tried to find it online.
You've said that publicly now.
Yeah, look, the thing with piracy is in any revolution, there's going to be looting. And the internet was a huge revolution in the way music's been consumed and the business model behind making money out of the consumption of music. And looting was inevitable. And I think it comes down to coming up with a better business model. I think Spotify's great. I love Spotify.
Does it pay enough to artists though?
Well, there's a couple of things. I noticed you referred to the Apple story before. Rumour is, and I seem to believe it, that the major labels are getting paid. It's the independents. So the major labels always get paid because they've got the catalogue. You know, they've got the Beatles, they've got the Bee Gees or whatever it is. So if anybody starts a music service, the labels get paid. The labels have got a huge equity stake in Spotify that they don't pass on to their artists, which is probably a different matter.
We'll come to that topic, yeah.
And Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is probably the most powerful artist in the world at the moment, and she's on an independent label. Now, if it wasn't for, say, Taylor Swift and Adele, Apple wouldn't care. And all the independent labels may say, hey, Mr. Apple, you're not being very fair giving us any money. And Apple would go, well, I don't care. You're nothing. You've got no power. So it comes down to bargaining power across the table.
Well, doesn't this democratise that a little bit? Major labels or smaller labels, if you're going with the
Absolutely, but if you've got no power, you can't sit down at the negotiating table, can you? So it's only because the independent label sector has got Taylor Swift, has got Adele, that they've actually got some meat and potatoes behind their argument, that Apple are sort of, hey, we can't really launch without Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Well, James, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, look, as most of the guys have touched on, at the end of the day, as technology advances, people are going to find a way around it. And I think as much as we try and put steps in place, we're really going to always be one step behind the game in terms of stopping it. I know a lot of artists now who've just sort of changed their focus in terms of music and their music records, like, and using it more as a promotional tool. I mean, a lot of people with emerging artists need to understand if they don't pay those artists for those records, they're going to stop producing music at the end of the day. But at the same time, I mean, if someone wants to steal their music, at least they want to listen to it. Like, like at the end of the day, and I mean, even if they've maybe stolen it, if that means then they come and pay a ticket to come and see a live show, Hey.
Well, this brings up another issue, which I did an interview recently with my son, who is also a musician. He's worked in LA, and I encourage everyone to. It'll be available within this week, so watch this interview. But one of the things he brings up is that was fine. If you're not making money off the music, at least you could make the money from the touring and the merchandise.
Which is how most artists do make
Right,
money.
but that doesn't work anymore if you're signed to a major label, because they own everything. It's a 360 deal, as they call it. So there's no way for a musician to make money except what the major label gives to them, which makes it even more desirable to be totally independent. But then you've got to really work. You've got to do the marketing, do the distributing yourself, you know. As someone who's running a venue like this, dealing with smaller independent artists, is that feasible? Can you actually make a decent living and get ahead doing that?
Yeah, it is a lot of hard work, and most up-and-coming artists and independent artists have to wear several hats. So they are a musician. They do have to put the business hat on until they are established enough to have management. But even then, I mean, it's still a lot of work that you have to do yourself. You know, I know lots of artists that manage their own social media themselves, even though they have managers, they prefer to stay hands-on. Yeah, I mean, most artists do have to wear several hats at the same time.
So you're
Absolutely,
indie
yeah.
band. So how much of that do you end up having to do?
All of it.
Are you signed at the moment with anyone?
No, we're
Have you
not.
recorded?
Well, I don't really want to talk about. We are actually negotiating with someone at the moment,
Okay.
but yeah. Even still, we do all the work ourselves, all the planning of tours, all the publicity, coming up with the marketing strategies, social media, everything. Like, you know, and it's really hard work, and it's such hard work that I know myself. It's stressed me out so much. I've actually thought, do I really even want to do this?
Do you have
Because
time
it's
to
like,
actually make music after all of that?
when I'm really in the, like, if we've got a really big project where we're having to focus a lot, no, or almost, like, it really consumes you, because it's such a big world, the business of music, that it just saps the life force out of you, which you need to create the music. So it's definitely tricky.
Well,
but
this was one reason to have a record company. They would do the marketing and the distribution. You didn't have to worry too much about that. And if it was a good relationship, that worked really well.
yeah.
But that doesn't work anymore. That's not the future. So what is the future for a young band like yourself trying to get through? How do you make a living?
It's, I don't know whether I have, like, the answer for that, but, like, I think that the whole major label thing is really, like, it's a thing of the past, the whole major label thing. I think and independent stuff, from what I'm seeing anyway, is it's sort of the future, like that sort of stuff. And even like my band's sort of thinking like this a little bit, and I know other bands are too. You've got to sort of, like, think of yourself as a business and bring it, you know, and as you grow, you employ people, so you're the label, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I think, like, so, you know, you've got Manana, and so as you grow, you hire a manager, start helping with things, and then...
Well, this is not a new thing. Like, bands from the 60s and 70s, when they realised they weren't making enough money, they'd start their own label, Bowie, Stones, Zeppelin, whoever.
Totally.
Right? And what you're referring to there basically is you're not just a band doing music, you become a brand.
Yeah.
This is something else my son was talking about. You've got to become a brand and own all of that, and the artwork, everything else. Now, Brent, you've worked in studios back in the 80s, and you've helped develop artists and all of this. How have you seen things change over those years?
I totally agree with what Lewis said there about the death of the major labels. I don't think they're going to die or go away because they own all the old catalogue. Like I said, they've got all the old catalogue and they own the rights to that. But as far as breaking a new band, if you want your 15 minutes of fame, sure, sign with a record label. But there's a distinction that I've always made, that I've always thought that musicians are the only people that are in the music business. Everybody else is in a different business. Record companies are in the business of selling records. Now, whether that's a piece of vinyl or a piece of data, that's what they're doing. They're selling records.
They're in the content business.
In the content business,
music.
selling it, marketing it.
Yeah.
Radio, television, they're not in the music. Radio, a lot of people think radio in the music business. They're not. They're in the ratings, advertising business. So it comes down to having an idea of who you're doing business with. The other thing is there has been a rise in these new, what they call label services. I suppose one of the biggest examples would be Cobalt. that is, they offer like a label service. They do marketing for you. They take care of all your royalties. They take care of a lot of the tasks that a major label used to take care of. All the back end, all the business stuff. The big ones.
This is just a service for hire.
This is just a service for hire. So you can start your own record label, like you say, like David Bowie used to do. You guys could start a record label, and the record label essentially enables you to own your copyright and control your copyright. You don't have to sign, but then all the dog work, all the all the legal work and the accounting and the collecting all the money and the marketing is taken care of by this label service.
This is happening in book publishing as well. Publishers don't develop or do even the editing. That's all sourced out now, outsourced to people.
Right.
So as long as you can afford those services, yeah, that can work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to a money figure again at the end of the day. But like in the band situation, I mean, like any business, if you're the ones running it, at the end of the day, you're the ones that are going to benefit. If and when it takes off. Like when you sell your brand to a record label, you've sold your brand. You're working for the record label at the end of the day.
Power.
Yeah, everything's gone.
Well,
so
this comes down to owning your intellectual property.
it's your product.
Yes.
It's your product, and I mean, if you work from the standpoint of bringing people into it, that's probably a better way to go at the end of the day, because you've still got ultimate control of your product, your music that you want to put out there. I know a lot of artists that have signed with record labels and then they sort of get pushed into a style or a genre of music that they don't want to do, especially with the big record labels, because the big record labels have got this framework of an artist that they want to spit out and
Which
sell.
works up to a point, but they just
Totally.
it's a blinkered vision.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing to remember as well, with every record label that's out there, for every successful band or artist, there's five to 10 other artists sitting in the background that never get anything, and they don't make any money at the end of the day.
Well, this brings us to our other point, which is if you really want to get ahead in this, you've got to be writing original music and owning that IP. But there is nowhere to play it. There are no venues for original music, or there's not enough. This is one. Right?
I don't agree with that, actually.
But there's not enough. So how many are there on the coast, for example?
Look, I think I don't really agree with that at all. I think there's lots of venues on the coast, but the problem is they're not playing original music. They're playing cover gigs.
Exactly.
They're employing bands to come in and pay a cover gig, which I think is really sad, actually. There's so many amazing bands out there, and it breaks my heart to see my friends going out there getting paid to do cover gigs and not playing their own original music. I think it's something that really needs to change on the coast. There's multiple venues, there's cafes, there's restaurants, and when these artists are getting paid more to play a cover gig, they don't have time to write their own original music. And I think, Sydney, there's multiple venues, there's a huge audience, but the coast really needs to embrace original music. And I've had this conversation with Brent, so I think he agrees with me there
Brent.
Yeah, whilst I agree with you, I think there's a few other. I mean, as you know, I'm a firm supporter of original music. I record it and put my time in, but essentially it comes down to original artists have to create value for their art. It's not up to the venue to supply a place for art to exist. So if you're an original artist and you want to go out there and play, you have to make your art valuable. So, and it doesn't matter how good you are on your instrument. You can be the best musician on the Central Coast, but if no one wants to listen to you, then you're worth nothing. And that may sound harsh, but that's the business reality. And a lot of the venues, their clientele want cover versions. There's a role that covers play. I mean, covers have had a huge role in society since, you can go back 10,000 years to talking stories in Africa around the campfire. And there's a lot of people out there that like to go to a club on a Saturday night and listen to Summer of '69. Does that make them a lesser human being? Of course not.
Well, I'm not saying
That's just
we should
what they
get
want
rid
to.
of covers
So-
completely, but we've got to have a balance.
Well,
So how do we make people want to also go to original performances?
It's up to the artist to find an audience. It really is. That's the bottom line, and that's what a lot of people don't seem to grasp. Like, no one owes you anything.
Yeah.
You are not owed anything. If I want to go out in public and play a song that I've written, and no one wants to come and see me, or I get a gig in a cafe and people leave, dude, I'm not.
Well, so just
I'm not
play
going to
some
get paid.
chisel.
Yeah. There's also. I mean, without getting on a soapbox, I've seen covers change. When I started playing, it was a mark of respect, and it was almost a badge of honour if you got a gig in a working covers band in the 70s, because you had to be able to play and you had to be able to sing. And then, of course, along came the MIDI files, and along came technology, and you end up with someone in the lounge at Mangara on a Saturday night with a Roland MIDI box and a capo and a half an octave range, singing off key, and they're getting paid. And a lot of people are angry about that, and damn right.
Yeah, but that said, in the 70s, along with that, there was a burgeoning original. A lot of great acts in Australia came out of that original.
Because
act.
playing the covers gives you skills.
Yeah.
Now,
That's very
it
spot
gives
on.
you skills, and I look at a lot of original bands, and I think, dude, you should be out playing covers. And a lot of them don't want to play covers because they see covers as, I don't know, Summer of '69, Sweet Home Alabama, and that is such a narrow view of covers. If you want to learn, say, arrangement skills, play some Duke Ellington, play some Quincy Jones, listen to some Michael Jackson records,
Well,
learn how to
it
arrange.
used to be that you would play covers and then you put in a few originals, and eventually your set would become mostly
I was
originals.
speaking with Brent about this
Yeah.
before.
Play some jazz. Like, there's such a wide range of covers that people think, oh, if I play covers, that means I've got to do Brown Eyed Girl and I've got to do these. And it's like, well, no, you don't have to. You can actually play some really interesting covers that you can learn from. You can develop skills. If you want to be a songwriter, I really think that if you want to be a good songwriter, go out and do some songs of Bacharach and David. Do some Brian Wilson and actually listen to them.
Yeah.
How does it feel when I'm playing the song and I go from the verse to the chorus? How did he make that emotional change happen? When I feel that song, how did he do that? How did he do that? And that's teaching you the craft of songwriting. It's one thing to sit in your bedroom bashing away writing songs, and that's great, but you can learn so much.
James, you're not along to all
Totally agree. I mean, look, 90% of my work is actually covers, and covers pay my bills at the end of the day. But for a lot of artists as well, like I've worked with a lot of artists that still have their original thing going in the background, and they play covers, and they learn a lot, and you can actually hear the influences of those artists through their covers. And then it comes back to the venue discussion. There's tons of venues. It costs money though, at the end of the day, to get into some venues. And like any business, if you're putting a product out there, you've got to expect to put some money and some dollars behind putting a product out to the public.
Yes.
So, I mean, I've put on now a number of shows, and it's the risk you take. I mean, whether they're cover shows or they're original shows, I've done both for artists. And you take a risk putting a show on, booking a venue, and the risk can go either way. But at the end of the day, you never know out of those 80 to 100 people that maybe came to that gig and watched that gig, if they're going to go away and say, you know what, this was great, we're going to bring a whole group of friends next time, sort of thing. It's a progression thing, and I think a lot of artists get discouraged because it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, a lot of people spend five years building a following. They can't expect it to happen overnight, and whether that comes from doing covers gigs, doing the one-off original gigs. I mean, there's lots of little formulas that you can put in place where you geek heavily doing covers and then do an original.
If you want to make a career with this and you want to become a songwriter and develop a career as that, is the solution then start playing covers, that gets you into the venues, and then gradually bring in the original and convert your audience that you've now established?
If you want to be a good musician, you have to play covers.
I think you do, yeah.
You have to play
I
covers.
agree.
You have to be able to learn, the song structures, and a lot of covers are really technically hard for people.
It's skills, isn't it? It's skills. Yeah, certainly. It's getting skills under your belt. There's another angle. I've seen a few bands, and history is littered with bands, whereby the front guy or the front girl got a lot of talent, great voice, great songs. The musicians in the band, not quite up to scratch. And they get signed to a record company, and the record company says to the songwriter, I really like your songs, but I think you're limited with your musicians. You need better musicians. And if you look at the great records from Motown, from Stax, those guys were out playing covers all night. They were playing jazz standards, they put in big band, they're doing bebop jazz, but it's still covers, right? So they're playing every night, playing covers, and then when they go in the studio, they're sharp.
These are
as.
session music. That's the
Sharp
whole of
as.
the world, though.
But
there's
it's
no reason
still,
why you can't get to that.
it's the same principle. It's having skills. It's
Yeah.
having skills, and I think I see a lot of original acts out there that lack skills. Just my
I'm actually
observation.
very gratified to hear this, that you're talking about trying to build up the craft and learning those skills from playing good songs.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that I'm in no way saying I'm not trying to boost the covers market here. I'm saying if you want to play original music, you are doing yourself a service by going out and playing some covers. And choosing what covers you want to play. What music do I love? What do I want to learn? Who are my idols, and what sort of musical direction do I want to go? And then research the venues. You know, if you don't want to go and play in the Crown Berry and play your classic hits, don't do it. There's lots of other venues that you can go and play different covers. You don't have to go and do Mangara or the RSL clubs where, you know, we're all down there doing Summer of '69. I mean, I do some of those gigs.
But
But I'm an old guy. I'm not going to get a record deal, you know?
I mean, I totally agree with Brent. You know, when artists are learning, and totally agree that covers is a great way to become a good musician. And even during your original gigs, covers can be awesome. A good cover that you own and that you change and that you create to be your own is always a hit with the audience. But I do really honestly believe that the coast needs to embrace original music. And if that means taking a covers band that allow them to play original music as well in a mix, and that's a slow, gradual, you know, entry into it, then yeah, that's
Well, I get the
great.
feeling we're due for another revolution. Every now and then we get these cycles every 10 years or so of, you know, a burst of energy of new original bands and all of this that come out of it. And it's been a while.
There's plenty on the
Since we've
coast,
had
man.
this.
There's plenty of talented musicians on the coast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
Are they not? Well, are they stuck playing covers? So why aren't they emerging? Not just the coast, but nationally. Why is it not happening as much?
I think, like, one reason anyway, and a lot of my friends are probably going to hate me for saying this, but it's like, probably, I know tons of musicians that are so talented, but they're just terrible at organisation, and they're so unmotivated, and they're not willing to market themselves and even think about that sort of stuff, and you know, and they automatically write cover gigs off. You know what I mean? They're like, I'm not playing a cover gig. That's not me.
I'm an artist.
But I'm an artist, and the thing is, you know, the cover gigs, as we've just spoken about, you know, they just give you so many skills, and like even presenting your original music, you can learn how to present.
So let me ask, Manana, do you do covers?
Yeah, we do covers for sure.
We're only doing originals because we don't get the copyright for songs, but we're doing originals tonight.
But you're not a cover band.
No,
You're not a cover band.
I
Exactly.
I wouldn't say we're a cover band, but I mean, our catalogue of covers,
Like what?
we'd have about 25 covers we can play just like that.
Name a couple of titles. What do you do? What kind of songs?
Oh God.
Twist and shout.
Twist and Shout.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you put me on the spot now. You know, a couple of Bob Marley ones. Bones.
So there's rock and there's reggae.
There's
and
rock, there's reggae.
yeah.
Also, because the music we listen to all sorts of stuff. And also, when we try and pick covers too, which is what Brent was saying before, we do have ones that a lot of people know, but we have a couple of covers which not many people know, and they just assume it's our song when we
Yeah,
play it, which
yeah.
is, we're not going to say anything about it, to be honest. But it's a cover.
It's
and
sometimes
an awesome
great
cover.
to just play great songs.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you pick covers that you're all cool to play.
Yeah.
And you
It's like if
love-
someone suggests a cover and someone else in the band goes, oh man, I hate that song.
Yeah.
I don't want to play that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, don't play it.
Yeah.
The other thing that covers do is it teaches you the other skills. It teaches you how to negotiate. It teaches you how to deal with booking agents. It teaches you how to work with promoters, how to work social media. It teaches you all these other skills, how to run a PA system, how to go on the road. Even just if you go to Newcastle and do a couple of covers gigs and book a motel and stay in that, you will learn so much about the mechanics of putting music on the road and making a living that you can then take those skills to use for your original band.
I'd just like to say, I don't think it's even possible to get on the road unless you can play covers, from my experience.
I
It's
think it's
literally
true.
like the
Totally.
first
I
time
think it's true,
you
yeah.
ever go. I haven't been on the road many times, but it's not possible unless you can play covers. It's just not going to happen.
It's a vessel and a way to get into venues.
Yeah.
And then from there,
Yeah.
like, I mean, again, if people like you in the way you play, if you're a good band, people like you, they're going to come up and inquire about
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, it might be one or two people, but it's just, it's building that
Okay.
following.
Moving beyond this cover bands, live venues kind of thing.
Yep.
When you do write originals and you're recording and you're putting them out there and you can put them onto SoundCloud, onto iTunes or whatever it might be, we can make money as independent artists doing those covers gigs. How do we now make money from our recorded music of original stuff? What is the new model going to be?
I think I'm not a musician, but I know a little bit about this. But I think it's really important for artists to protect themselves. So you do have to have that business model and that business hat on a little bit, but you have to know where to start. So registering for APRA, for example, number one thing I think.
Make money by playing your own
Definitely number
songs.
one.
No, but I mean, you need to protect yourself. You need to make sure that you're registered with APRA. Every song that you write is registered, and the co-songwriters are registered with APRA. Every time you go out to a live gig and a festival, you need to register that, because that's a way that you can get money back.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be a large amount of money by any means, but it is something. And that's a way to start. And I think up-and-coming artists need to know these things, and they need to
And
to
also, if
understand
you
how this
register with
works.
APRA and you put some stuff on iTunes or it's out there for free,
It'll all
even,
needs
I've
to
had
be
royalties
indexed.
come from God knows where,
Yeah.
because some radio station
Yeah.
somewhere picked it up.
Music libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put in the music libraries, you never know, it might end up on a short film or TV
Exactly,
show. Or
yeah.
Well, that's
something
one
like
of the big money. That's the one the record companies are
Syncs.
really into. Synchronization
Syncs,
rights
yeah.
for movies and TV shows is the only way to really make good money out of this
And
sort of
brand sponsorships.
and TV ads and
Yeah,
brands.
and brand sponsorships. And I hear from a lot of original acts and even big bands going, you know, I don't want to do a deal with Nike, or I don't want to do a deal with Levi's or whatever. And it's like, well, you signed with Warner Brothers. What are they? They're a Wall Street company, dude. Like, are they any better? And it's like, you're doing a deal with a Wall Street company. What's wrong? It's the way you look at it. It's really just doing business and the way the money flows. Just one quick thing about APRA is that that's only the songwriter.
Yeah.
And that also causes a lot of bands to break up.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
not the
Because when the money comes in, the drummer and the bass player didn't get any money, and the guy who wrote the songs just bought himself a new Maserati, and it caused a lot of...
Well, you
think-
can do what Zeppelin did, and everyone gets a songwriting credit, and as long as everyone's cool with that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I know husband and wife teams that they have to actually sit down after they've written a song and say, look, okay, I think I wrote 70% and you wrote 30, and negotiate it. But it has
You
to
gotta
be a
figure
very
it out.
open,
You've got to make
fair.
that up clear up
You have to
front.
make it clear,
Yeah.
clear
Yeah.
communication, and register it straight away, so that there's no dramas later on down the track, because bands
Yeah.
can break up over these things.
Yes.
Which is why you see a lot today. There's memes I've seen going around on the internet. There's a picture of, you know, Freddie Mercury, and one person wrote this song, and then it's got Beyonce and 12 people wrote this song. And that's because the songwriter gets the money. So when Freddie Mercury wrote his songs, and I'm only doing this because I saw the meme go by, there were other people involved. There was an arranger, there was a vocal arranger, there was a producer, and there's all these other people involved in making the record that didn't get a songwriter royalty. And nowadays everybody's smart, whereby, okay, I'll give you a beat, I'll supply a top
The
line.
producers always get a credit these days.
Yeah,
as a
these days they
songwriter.
do. Back in the
Yeah.
old days, they were just on staff. I mean, a classic's George Martin. George Martin didn't get any royalties from the Beatles
And he wrote all the string arrangements and everything else.
because he was a hired arranger.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't getting a cut. And then we get to Elvis, and
Yeah, and he gets co-songwriting.
he got songwriting royalties, but he had nothing to do with it,
Yeah.
because he basically said to the guy, I'm going to put your song on my record, but I want a cut.
It'll be a hit because I'm doing it, so
Exactly.
I get a cut.
So it just comes down to the money. So when you see a Beyonce record or a Taylor Swift record and there's 6 writers, it's no different than what it was. It's just that those contributors have got smarter.
They know
and
that's
they
where
say,
the money
I
is.
want a writing royalty because that's where the money is.
Yeah.
And
And that was recently brought up again with Kanye West, of the, you know, saying having a go at Beyonce versus
Yes.
Beck. When Beck does write everything himself, and you know, he has no idea who Beck is.
Yeah.
Kanye being
And we've
Kanye.
just seen what's happened with, you know, with that horrible song that Robin Thicke brought out and the Marvin Gaye thing.
Well,
Yeah,
and now we've seen what's happened with,
let's talk
with
about
Uptown
that. I mean,
Funk.
Yeah.
that,
You know?
in my
I
opinion,
haven't heard about Uptown Funk.
they should not have lost that case. They were similar, the groove was similar, but I don't think that was a breach of copyright.
Totally not. No, totally not.
And from my understanding in the court case, they presented sheet music, and the beats looked the same on sheet music. They didn't actually hear
It's a
either of the
very
songs.
dangerous precedent.
It is.
Yeah.
A dangerous precedent when something like that, and it's only because it was such a big song
Yep.
that they thought they could.
That's
and now,
right.
And
That's
now they're
right.
suing Pharrell over Happy. Again, the Marvin Gaye estate. They're doing
Yep.
the same thing over Happy
Yep.
because they can.
Because they can. It's only because there's money involved. What I meant with Uptown Funk was they got approached by the Gap Band.
Yeah, right.
Now, you know, the Gap Band said you've taken our idea and you've ripped us off. We're going to take you to court. And Mark Ronson went, I'm just going to pay them off.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go through this because I've just seen what's happened with that case. Man, I did not steal your song. I do not believe I stole your song, but I've just seen what's happened to Robin Thicke.
So I'm just gonna
Here,
get
take
rid
some
of
money
it.
and go
Easier.
away.
Yeah.
We're going to give you a credit, which is
This
a
is getting
dangerous
ridiculous.
precedent.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, creative arts it's very hard to copyright. Anyway, it's
Yeah.
such a
It is. yeah.
hard business
And
for
with
artists
such
to
a
protect
wealthy
themselves.
history behind it, it's hard to do anything truly original anyway.
Well,
I mean, every second rock song is 12 Bar Blues, so what do you do?
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, if you think about how many people were on the planet, like, 50 years ago, and how many notes there are on a keyboard, and how many people keep
Yeah.
growing,
It's bound to happen.
eventually it's going to come to a point where it's impossible to create
Yeah.
anything new. Eventually, unless there's a new note found, which.
And the
Yeah.
solution
As far
is
as I'm
don't
aware,
make too much
probably
money
won't
off it,
happen.
then there's nothing to sue you for.
That's exactly right. If you don't make much money, they're not going to come looking for
Yeah,
you.
true.
I think the notion of hip hop and DJ culture had a lot to do with the change because before that,
With sampling and all of that.
yeah, before that it was all about the melody. It was the melody or the lyric, and really, if you were accused of stealing, if you said you've stolen my song, you had to
it
prove
was
that there
based
was
on
a
the melody,
melody or the lyric that was stolen. Then it got to the stage where James Brown went, you've stolen 3 seconds of my horn
But it's
part.
recognisable. Yeah.
And what you're dealing with there is he stole the record company's property, not the songwriter's
the
property.
mechanical rights,
The
yeah.
mechanical rights. So this whole game changed, and suddenly all you've got to do is sort of have like a bit of a hint, like you might sound like James, and you got to give him some money, which is really.
I think that's also, DJs and people that sample, that's another side of the copyright issue that they need to be aware of, how much they can legally sample without getting permission. And, DJs are artists as well, and all these mashups that are coming out. And I think it's really important for them to be aware of that as well. And
Well,
know
absolutely,
the
yes,
copyright
Is this
yes.
laws
fair use?
and-
A lot of people on YouTube do this kind of stuff with mashups. What percentage is this fair use? If you're not really trying to make money off it, you're just doing it.
I actually don't know
and
the
record companies
laws.
come after you because you've used a sample of
Yeah,
something.
YouTube can be a little bit different because the record company can still get their money
Through the
because
fingerprinting,
the
yeah.
record company got software
Well, that
trackers.
solves that problem to a certain extent.
So if I put a video up on YouTube of me dancing to a Beatles song, two things could happen. The Beatles could come and tell me to take it down, or the Beatles could say we're going to take the advertising money, and the Beatles just take the advertising money, and I'm allowed to put my video up of,
Well,
of
who
a Beatles
owns it?
song.
Michael Jackson owns them now.
Well, exactly. But so the companies are still getting the money off the YouTube, okay? But if I sell a record and I take all the money,
Thanks. I want to
Yeah.
move along. Just one other topic I wanted to quickly talk about. TV talent shows. We've had these for a very long time, okay? And there's been a plethora of them in the last 10, 15 years or so. Are they actually good for the music industry? I mean, you've had some involvement with this, I understand.
Yeah.
So what's your experience
well,
with this kind of thing?
it's funny. I did a stint on Australia's Got Talent, so it's kind of a little bit different to The Voice and X Factor, but it was interesting. I was speaking to my drum teacher at the time, and he said he did Australian Idol. He was the drummer for the whole run of Australian Idol, and he said how the role of the TV shows has changed with the record companies, because the record companies are so in with all the TV shows. When you sign a TV contract, you sign a record contract as well.
Yeah.
And so the record labels are kind of using it like a test to see if the nation's going to hook onto this artist. If they hook onto this artist, they'll sign them up, kind of thing. So whereas the record label is kind of taking a stab or putting money behind the artist without, like
It's less
gambles,
ri- it's less risk.
the gambles, they put the risk on television, and they make, and more people benefit from it financially
Yeah,
as
but
well,
then
and it's
it's-
free performance.
It's a peak
yeah.
and then it disappears
Yeah.
very quickly.
Well-
It's actually a good way to start a career, though.
No,
no.
you need to have a career established,
That's right.
and you build off that TV is free airtime in front of the whole nation. So if you need to have gigs under your belt, you need to have something on iTunes before you get locked into the contract, and you need to have stuff ready to go as soon as you get off so you can hit the ground running, because you have like that much exposure and you do become a celebrity. It might be for 1 week, it might be for 1 hour, but it's how you then kickstart that off and keep that going. And some artists have made that
Idol,
going.
they locked you in for one album. They owned all that. You had to do that album, the songs they gave you.
I mean,
but then after that,
yeah,
if you could sustain
you
it.
look at like Guy Sebastian now. Like he went through a period where he was owned, and now he's come out of it. And he like, I was talking to someone the other day who spoke to him before he went on the before he went on Idol, and he was singing 3 to 4 hours every day. Like his vocal training and his musicianship was there. Like
to see him at Eurovision, he was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people stereotype everyone that goes on these TV shows as people who have done absolutely nothing, and half the time that is sometimes the case. But there are a lot of people who have put a lot of work behind the scenes, and they're generally the ones that benefit out of it, whether it be corporate work or...
Does it set a kind of stigma though, that you've come up through a talent show and you've got to try and overcome that somehow?
Look, I think I agree that the people that have done well out of these talent shows have come from a background where they've already done a lot of groundwork, and they're on TV for exposure, really. There've been lots of great artists that have come up through these shows. There's been like Matt Corby, Lisa Mitchell. I actually had this pretty in-depth conversation with Wes Carr last weekend, and he won Australian Idol, I think, quite a few years ago. But as he explained to me, there's definite pros and cons. He's not, well, no, I can't speak for him. A lot of people aren't fans of these shows, but he said the exposure was just phenomenal for him. He said in that time that you're on air, that 3 or 4 minutes, you control that time. So you are exposed to millions of people on TV, but they only see you. There can be a game, there can be record deals after, the TV can control it, but for that time that you're playing in front of millions of people, you control that time. And so some of these artists that are coming up have just had that exposure that has done great things for their career. Uncle Jed is another one. You know, those guys have been playing in Sydney for years and playing with jazz clubs.
They were on our
amazing
series.
artists.
They won. We finished runners up, and they won it. And we went and saw it. Like I'd never heard of them, and then we went and saw a live show, and it was like they're unbelievable musicians.
They're unbelievable.
Would you put Manana on one of these shows?
No, definitely not.
Why not?
I just want to say one thing first. I'd just like to say that the best kind of art, in my opinion, is the kind of art that pushes boundaries. And these kind of shows, like no offense to anyone that's been on one, but they only accept like a certain type of people, whether they're trained or whether they're prepared or not. And it's just giving you, in my opinion, more of the same. You know what I mean? And from what I understand about them too, you know, these type of contracts, a lot of these dudes, I mean, yeah, if they use it wisely afterwards, they can launch themselves and start making some money. But a lot of these dudes get ripped off from what I understand.
They have to be able to get out of those
It's a gamble at the end of the day, and you've got to like. I mean, a lot of the people who do well don't actually win it.
Exactly.
I mean, for example, Uncle Jed, you go see their live show, completely different to most of the stuff they did on the TV show. But the exposure they got off it, they did a sold-out national tour straight after the show. So like,
I think it would be really cool. I've been doing research about jazz artists for uni, and I recently found out that oh god, I've forgotten his name, but like back then artists used to Gene Krupa put on he's a drummer, and he put on a drum workshop where in America he invited all drummers to come, and it was basically like Australian Idol but for drummers. And Louis Bellson won that, and then he went on and launched his career from it. But it's like, I think, like, so like in a modern example of that, like say, like maybe Madonna or something like that, if she put on something like this, instead of a company doing it who has an ulterior motive, it's like whoever puts this on should genuinely care about the art that's going to come out of it. And do you know what I'm saying?
That's the crux of it, I think.
Do you know what I mean? It's the people doing it.
That I'm sure
motive?
that Gene Krupa was looking to expose talent.
Yeah.
While Channel 9 are just looking to make some money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, and you could like that series that we did as well. You could tell that. But look, it's an opportunity, and it is a gamble. But if you prepare yourself and then you're prepared to work your butt off after it,
Certainly.
it could be the opportunity that changes your career.
It obviously, and you're absolutely right. It obviously works for some people.
It does, yeah.
It definitely does.
Well, we've got some questions in the audience I want to go to now, actually. So, since Peter's not here, we've got Tina Wake as my doing my Vox Pops today. Tina, what's our first question?
Hello, we've got a great audience here tonight. I've got Joel who's ready to ask a question.
Hi, I was wondering if there's a standard rate for gigs in the music industry.
Sorry, what was that?
Is there a standard rate for gigs?
A standard rate for gigs in the music industry. Our performing musicians here.
Are we talking about covers or originals?
Yeah. It's a broad statement.
Yeah.
Well, originals can go from, you can be lucky to get a cup of coffee to Bruce Springsteen. And it's really about you creating worth, which is what we touched on before. You have to create the worth for your art, and it's about how many tickets you can sell.
Do you set the price, or is it the venue
Oh,
that
no.
sets the price?
Well, it depends who you are.
It can depend. It totally depends.
I mean, it depends what deal, whether the artist, the venue's approached you, but a lot of the times, as we're discovering on the Central Coast, you need to approach the venue. You need to go to them with a business plan of how this is going to benefit both you and the venue, because the venue needs, it's a venue, and that's why a lot of venues probably have gone bust, because they're not making the money. You need to come up with a financial deal that's going to work for both you
Let me talk to the person who runs the venue, Lou.
Yeah.
You don't have to mention figures, but what's the general vibe
Well, generally
here?
here we do a door deal, which is becoming pretty common even in Sydney. So we take a percentage of the door and give a percentage to the artist, take off a few overheads for sound and a little bit of marketing. But I think we're quite unique in a way in that we really help the artist market. So some venues will really pressure the artist that they have to bring the audience. But I think, our best gigs are always when the artist and the venue work together to market it.
What have you found?
And I think it's important.
I'd just like to say that, just to break it down really simply, if you think about a plumber that goes out to someone's house who's got a busted something, he goes out there and assesses the situation and gives a quote. I think it's the same like that, venue to venue, artist to artist. You can't put a blanket, it's $500 a covers gig, or it's $500 an original gig. It depends where you are, your status, the venue, the facilities. Do you need to get a PA? There's just so
How
many.
much travelling you had to do.
How much travelling you had to do? In terms of in terms of what I think what I'm worth, I definitely don't always get it.
Have you ever been paid what you think you're worth? No.
I have, but it's rare. I definitely have, but it's rare. I think it's situational.
And do you find different rates for different kinds of gigs? Do you do corporate
definitely.
gigs or bigger venues?
Yes. Corporate gigs.
Corporate gigs. It's again, if you're coming off a TV show, it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're talking thousands of dollars for 20-minute performances. It is ridiculous.
Corporate shows are definitely good to.
But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to what you value, what you're prepared to work for, and that does come with a lot of issues again within the industry with different pay rates and people working cheaper than other people. But I don't
Tina, we've got another question, have we?
Same guy. Is there a governing body that sort of monitors the pay for those artists?
Is there a body that monitors the pay, oversees all of this to make sure we get paid fairly? Is there anyone that actually?
I think there is a musicians union, but I'm not sure that many people actually use it.
There's an freelance musicians alliance that I know of in Sydney, and they talk about ballpark figures and stuff like that, and they help in terms of chasing payments, especially with musicians and with venues and musicians with managers chasing payments, but
I know the Musicians Union is meant to be overseeing this, both for recorded music and royalties, and also for performance stuff. But
I know
how much can they do?
I know a lot of the musician union stuff though it was put in place for the theatre, like the pit musicians. Yeah. Because they're really.
Well, that's a controlled environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And television.
And television. Yeah, exactly. So
they don't deal with touring bands much at all.
No.
So who looks after that sort of thing?
There are some sort of set rates in the covers world. You could say if you're a working covers act and the venues know you, the venues like you, the booking agents know you, and the booking agents like you. These are all assumptions. You can work as a solo artist. You can work as a solo artist and get anything from $250 to $400 a night. You can put a duo together and make $500-600 a night. A band, you'd be starting. Some bands will do a gig for $500. Some gigs start about $700-800. If you pull a crowd, some friends of mine that play in a covers band, and they'll play at a certain venue, and they get 100 people along, they can ask the venue for $1,500. And then there's some corporate shows. I play guitar in a corporate show that doesn't go out for under $4,500. Now that's, there's 2 guitar players, a keyboard player, it's very well established. We got guys that are selling it.
Do you have a booking agent?
No, we don't have a booking agent because the 2 guys that manage it have an established network they get the work from. We don't work that often.
Yeah.
But I'm just sort of saying that if you're in a covers band and there's different rates.
Yep.
And once you get to the corporate world, a friend of mine, Danny DeRoss, went on The Voice specifically to raise her profile because she was teaching. So it was all about her teaching school to raise her profile. Smart. And she went out, and the money she was making doing but it only lasted for 18 months, and now she's sort of almost coming back down to, because it's like Danny Who, it was 5 years ago, but she made a killing. And she wasn't trying to be a pop star.
Well, I guess if you're
she wasn't trying to get a record deal.
Yes, if you're happy
So
just
she
to
knew
make
what she
a
was
living
doing.
doing this, that's fine. Yeah. As long as you don't want to be the biggest star in the world, you can make a decent living. You play a few covers and run your business, yeah?
It pays the bills.
Pays the bills.
Well, we're going to wrap this up. Lou, anything you'd like to spruik and tell us about finally?
Oh, yes, we have lots of great gigs here actually.
Yeah,
at
who's
Rhythm
coming
Hub.
up?
We have a really lovely fundraiser on Friday night with the Five Lands Band and Dubberay as the feature artist. It's free entry, Brent plays
What's the
with
date
us.
for when people are
This
watching
Sunday the 28th of June.
And beyond
Starts at 5 o'clock, music at 6:30, drum circle at 5 o'clock. We're raising money for Give Me 5 for kids, and we actually have a double pass to Soulfest to give away, which is worth like $320. So yeah, it's always a pumping night.
And the Hut's always got drum classes.
We have drum classes, we have workshops, we have live music, we have all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so
check
come
out our
to the
Facebook
shows,
page.
Exactly, check out the Facebook page, which is
The Rhythm Hut on Facebook.
The Rhythm Hut, okay.
And our website.
Louis, what's Manana up to? What's coming up?
Manana is kind of being a bit elusive at the moment. We're kind of hiding back, but later on in the year there's going to be some big things coming up. We're going to be doing a single release and a massive tour, probably from Melbourne up to Queensland, I'd say. But I can't really, I probably said too much then anyway, but...
Where can we find out more information?
If you want to find out more, www.facebook.com/Manana Band. Or if you want to email us directly if you want to give us a corporate show or something, manana.management@gmail.com. And Manana's spelled M-A-N-A-N-A.
Right, with a little umlaut or whatever.
Yeah, but not on the, like, it is, that's how it is spelled, but not on the...
Manana.
Yeah, we just spell it
Manana.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brent, what have you been up to? What's coming up for you?
Just
lots of corporate gigs.
Yeah, just playing. But I mean, I'd really like to throw my support behind what happens here with Lou and the Rhythm Hut. I mean, these guys. I've been a firm supporter of these guys for years, since they were in their old premises, because I just love what they do. I mean, it's all about the music. They do the right thing, and I've known the people involved in it for ages, and it's just very rare to find people with a passion for music that don't, cross the bound. Like a lot of people start off with the right ideals, and then they start making a bit of money, and their ideals slip. But I just love what the Rhythm Hut does, and I just like to give them a rap.
Rap for the
yeah,
Rhythm Hut.
yeah.
James, what have you got coming up?
We're being flat out at the moment. We actually run a program called Kickstart Music, and we encourage young artists to work with live bands, actually. So we're down to the final concert, which happens on the 9th and 10th of July at Laycock Street Theatre in the Don Craig Room. And we've got 10 artists, each performing a 3-song set with a 6-piece live band, full production, full lighting show. And the kids that we've been mentoring through the whole process, they walk away with a promotional film from the night, and the winner, which is voted by the audience, walks away with an EP recorded again with the band. Nice. we throw a launch event for them for their
what's
EP
the
as well.
website that people can find out
You
more?
go, if you head to www.kickstartmusic.com.au, you'll find all the information there, or if you head to Laycock Street Theatre website, you can book through that as well.
Thank you. If you've been hearing a bit of rumbling in the background, it's because Lou is snuck off stage to get ready to play their next song. But before we go to Manana playing our final song for the night, we're going to run the package for our local legend.
Hello, welcome to this special interview for the Litmus Test. We're here with Dexter Moore, an established singer-songwriter, engineer, arranger, producer, spanning 4 decades. So thanks for having us today, Dexter.
It's a
in the
pleasure.
studio.
Yeah.
You've got pages of awards here. What one stands out for you?
You know, it's a funny thing with awards. There's 2 sides to awards. One side is that they are a boost to a career or an ego, however you want to take that. On the other side of things, who decides these things? Anybody can start an awards thing, I guess. What does it mean? You know, a part of me questions what worth that is, on the basis of this, is that music is not a competition. But I'm just happy to actually just be getting up in the morning and playing music, you know.
That's your biggest award?
Well, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just to be living the life I live, where I now have, you know, a wonderful facility of my own, and just to be able to go and do a concert with some people like Liz Stringer and Lucy Thorne on the weekend, where people sit and listen and listen to my stories and listen to my music. I mean, it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to do, that, you know, I'm just full of gratitude for that. That's the award. That's the real award.
I wanted to ask you about Visor Guy as well. I've seen your interview. So
Visor
cool,
Guy.
the virtual world.
Yeah, that's been a phenomenal experience to go into virtual worlds. I did this in about 2006 for about 3 or 4 years, and what that is you go online into a virtual world as an avatar, but your audio can stream live. So we set our avatar up to play guitar, and then we stream live to an audience of people anywhere in the world working their avatars, right? So their avatars are in there like at a concert, and they're dancing around and they're saying, "Good song, great to see you," and you're saying, "Oh, cool, nice to see you, mate." And they can tip you as well. So I actually lived off doing this for a year at least, working in virtual worlds, playing live in my studio at home.
Wow.
Right? Not only that, but through my time there, I came up with this concept of doing a music video, utilizing the fan club, of which I got them all onto the sim one day, and they worked their avatars doing their dance and their special tricks. I had choreographed female dancers there, of one of whom which is an actual choreographer in Chicago, right? Synchronizing the movements, and I was there with this Visor Guy character, which I had created in Second Life. What I decided to do was to make a real life version of that, of myself in the Visor Guy outfit. So I had the outfit made, I had the visor designed and made, and I got it shot. I had Tony Mott come in, take photographs. I had it shot and put on a green screen. I put film footage of a background which I shot in virtual world behind me in real world, so that the two were very much morphing. Reality and virtual reality were very much morphing. So I created what they call a mixed reality music video. I'd never seen one before, and I've not seen one since.
I haven't either, and it's so good.
So that now what happened there was that got 2 nominations nationally for the video and song, but it also got an international nomination for a short film award in the Sci-Fi Film Awards.
With all your touring experience, what's the funniest gig?
It's quite easy. There was this wonderful festival in New Zealand called Nambassa, and I was down with some friends staying in their trailer. I had a gig there, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And to me, this was like this was the epitome of the best New Age, but not just New Age festival, music festival with, you know, wonderful massage and vegetarian food, beautiful facilities in a wonderful valley with this just pristine, crystal clear water river running through it. So I did my set on the second stage, just acoustic and vocal. And it was the big night. And I was hanging around, and my friend was the stage manager on the main stage. And I just went up to see him and say, how's it going? And there was this big dispute. There were two major artists, one of whom was saying they were not going to go on unless they got paid up front, right? So, and there are 40,000 people out there like going, where's the music, right? There's nothing happening. And then also Dizzy Gillespie is there as well, and he's like, well, you know, if they're going to get paid, we should get paid too, you know. So the dispute is going on, and the people running the festival are there trying to sort it out. And he turns around to my friend, the stage manager, and says, somebody's got to get on and do something, right? And my friend goes, my friend Will, here's a guitar, go, right? And I'm there in my sarong with a guitar in my hand and pushed out on the stage, 40,000 people.
Great.
I'm like, okay. So I'm just making it up as I go, and I end up supporting Dizzy Gillespie in a sarong in front of 40,000 people. It's very cool.
Welcome back. This is the end of this show about music. Before we wrap up, I'd like to thank the Rhythm Hut and Bob Fitzgerald in particular for all of the set dressing that we had today. You can reach us at thelitmustest.com, the-litmus-test.com. You'll find us on Facebook. And I also encourage you to seek out the interview I did with Shimon Moore, which will be uploaded in a few weeks' time. It's a really interesting interview, and he's got a lot to say about the music industry and his experiences in LA. But to wrap things up, we're going to close with another song from Manana. Take it away, guys.
How are you feeling?
Good.
What I am looking for still is some quiet to kill. What I am looking for still is some silence to fill. Top of the hill, looking for quiet to kill. I'm looking to acquire it. Still, I'm looking for quiet, 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 quiet. What I am looking for still is some free will. What I am looking for still is a wild beast to kill. He'll rip and tear at his lungs from the top of To kill, I'm looking to acquire it. Still, I'm looking for quiet. To kill, I'm looking to acquire it. Still, I'm looking for quiet. To kill, I'm looking to acquire it. Still, I'm looking for quiet. To kill, I'm looking to acquire it. Still, I'm looking for quiet. To kill, I'm looking to acquire it. Still, I'm looking for quiet. To kill.